brand is not your fonts, your logos, and your colors or your visual or your photos, etc. Right? Like, I think we've often heard about branding in those terms, and it's not. Branding is how you're perceived. It is what people are saying about you in your review. It is what the market has to say about who you are. And if you do your brand strategy correctly at the beginning, you get to drive that narrative and you get to drive that brand story, right? It's the emotional connection that we have to our audiences. And brand is where there is trust built so that your audience feels like, oh, I can trust you to deliver on the promise that you're telling me you're going to deliver on. And it is the success of your marketing strategies.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Hideaways Show. Our guest today is someone who truly understands the power of creating a brand for short-term rentals. She's an absolute rock star in the marketing space, and she's tapping in live from Indianapolis, Indiana. I've got the CEO of the Weber Co., Steph Weber, joining us today. Steph, welcome to the show.
Jordan, thanks so much for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Absolutely. How's your Friday been for you?
So far, so good. It's a beautiful fall day here in Indianapolis. We can't ask for much better. The sun is shining. It's good. Good vibes all around over here.
I was going to say we have it easy up here in the Midwest. I'm in Iowa. I could not imagine being in Florida right now with everything that's going on down there. So I will take the above average temps for fall time up here all day long.
Yeah, 100%. We have a guest experience representative who works on our co-hosting side of our business who lives in Tampa. And so I've been like messaging her all week long, like, how are things? And she's like, we've been without power for 3 days. I'm like, I just can't imagine. It's wet.
How is like her place and all that stuff down there? Was it as bad as she thought? Or
yeah, no, she actually said it wasn't as bad. She said the winds were just crazy, just a crazy wind. And then of course the power being out. But I think it wasn't as flooded, at least from what she's told me. It wasn't as flooded as they maybe anticipated it being. So that's good for that part of Florida, but I can't speak for everybody. Oh, I'm so
right. Yeah. My family has some places down in Fort Myers. Thankfully, not Fort Myers Beach, and that area has they just can't get a break. With Hurricane Ian, when that hurricane came through, it was actually that hurricane had two paths. Hurricane Ian did 2 years ago. It was either going to Florida or Texas, and I don't know if you know this, but our first property was in Texas. And the day that hurricane was supposed to hit track 2, it was supposed to make landfall on the coast of Texas where our property was the day we were closing. And I'm like, I am so thankful that it didn't do that. But then I was also like bummed because it went the other way and completely destroyed our in-laws' place on Fort Myers Beach. So it's like, it was one of those where I personally will probably, maybe not for the foreseeable future, own on a coastal market just because I see the hurricanes and I'm like, but again, I don't want that headache. But then again, I own properties in Kentucky and we've had our cabin shut down for a week and a half as a result of the hurricane that came up through Kentucky and knocked a tree through our deck. So it's like, I guess you really have to go far north to escape the hurricanes, right?
Yeah. And I think we deal with these like natural disasters kind of anywhere. Like in Indiana, we deal with tornadoes, and the hurricane actually affected us here in Indy too, the one that went through North Carolina. But yeah, it's one of those things like when you're getting into real estate, but I've had the same thought as you that I'm like, why would I want to be in a beach market? I'm not sure about this.
Yeah, it's nice to have a beach house and to be able to take your family and their friends there. But the moment a hurricane comes through and it's like, oh, like your place could be flooded and completely wrecked and you put so much work into it. Like to me, I'm thankful for that property, having gotten my experience in real estate, but I'm also so thankful that I no longer have that property.
Yeah,
so
100%.
It's one of those. It's a stepping stone, but nonetheless, we're not here to talk about hurricanes, which I know is a trending topic right now. What I want to start with is I know you started back in 2016 in the fashion and travel industry as an influencer. I'd love to dive deeper in how you went from influencer to where you are now.
This is my favorite question. One of them. I feel like I'm going to say that a few times today. You've got some good ones for me, Jordan. So I worked in the fashion industry at age 17. My parents, unfortunately, had a business that they had to file bankruptcy on, which forced my parents into personal bankruptcy when I was a senior in high school. And they basically were like, listen, if you want to go to school, you're going to put yourself through college. So you're going to have to figure it out. And I got a job in the fashion industry. I also worked in the Office of Financial Aid on my university's campus. And I also taught dance and worked at a photography studio. So I was like, listen, give me a challenge and I will take that. I'll take it on. So working in the fashion industry, I graduated college and started and continued to work for the same company, but had gone from a sales associate to a manager to then their brand manager, and then to their general manager. And so I walked out of college having that job, and embracing my career in marketing there for that company, small local boutique here in Indianapolis that then expanded to a second location. We were largely focused on prom dresses at the time, and I also was doing all of the buying. And obviously, prom is like really busy January through May. And when you get to May and you're a prom dress boutique, what do you do for the rest of the year? And so we decided to add on a collection of women's boutique clothing. And so we did all of the buying for that, and we started partnering with influencers. And I was like, hold up, I can do this. We're paying influencers to promote our brand and promote our clothing, and they're taking photos and posting it on Instagram and building a brand and building a following. These are all things that I know how to do. So I created my brand, Trendy and Indie. And largely the goal with that was to support small businesses and entrepreneurs, but it led to so many opportunities in working with national brands, and working with hotel brands like 25 Hours over in Europe and Andaz, both on Wall Street and in Napa Valley, Element Hotels out of Boston, Lark Hotel Group. I mean, so many different amazing opportunities came from, and I've always enjoyed the travel industry. I studied abroad. I've always enjoyed traveling. So I fortunate to have those opportunities and understand what it looked like to be both an influencer and to work on the brand side of things too, because I had both of those. Obviously, we were coordinating those brand partnerships with influencers, and that I was an influencer myself, structuring my own deal. I got to a point with that business, Jordan. I was actually in New York Fashion Week in 2018. And I'm sitting there like living the dream, right? Like living the influencer dream. That like you're at New York Fashion Week, putting in these runway shows. You got a hotel partnership with Andaz Wall Street. Like just crazy things were happening. So I was like, man, this is so cool. I think I'm meant for more. Like I think I'm meant to do something different here. And in working with the brands that I'd been supporting, I really realized that so many of them hadn't clearly defined their brand. I would ask, hey, tell me a little bit about your story. Tell me a little bit about why someone's coming to shop with you over the other boutique down the street, or why someone's staying with you over the other hotel options in this area. When I asked that question, it was like, oh, well, our pricing. Oh, well, our customer service. And it was just like, man, y'all are missing your brand strategy and your story and the emotional connection that people have to you. People are not emotionally connected to your price. Like people may shop based on price, and there certainly is a level of that. But again, there's effective positioning that's to happen, right? So I decided to create the Weber Co., and that business has been alive and well since 2019. And I kickstarted that business with a conference here in Indianapolis with 150 women who knew me as an influencer. And I was like, listen, we're going to host this women in business, women entrepreneur event here in Indy. And we're going to teach about branding and social media marketing and all these things. And 150 women were like, yeah, I'm in. I was like, this is wild. So I knew then that I was onto something. I pivoted fully to the Weber Co. in 2019, after having done some consulting. And then we launched coaching programs and launched our full service agency, which was really tremendous. And for a while, I didn't have to pick a niche. I didn't have to I was like, I can work with anyone because I understand how branding works across markets. I understand how organic marketing works. I didn't touch paid ads. I understand what that needs to look like and how to build a strategy for multiple different businesses. So from e-com to brick and mortars to the online coaching space to the aesthetics industry, you name it, I've probably done it. And I got to a place with that business, Jordan, where things were going really well, but I was pregnant with our second baby in April of 2023, like 8 months pregnant with him. And I had been working with multiple mentors over the years who kept telling me, Steph, you're going to have to pick a niche. You're going to have to pick a niche. And I was like, not yet. I don't know what that looks like for me. There was not an industry. The natural niche would have been the fashion industry. That's where the majority of my background was. But that was not the industry that I wanted to go all in on. And I can't really put my finger on exactly what it was, other than the fact that I felt like that industry just burned me and I was like, can go down with this space. And my husband and I had always wanted to invest in short-term rentals. We always talked about doing B&B. Literally, I remember we were living in our first apartment together after college, and Colin made these sausage pancakes. And literally, you just like put sausage in your pancakes, and they're great. And I was like, why don't we open a B&B someday? You can cook for everybody, and I'll handle all the hosting and the marketing. And it was just like a pipe dream at that time, right? Well, April 2023 rolls around. I'm 8 months pregnant, and I'm like, I think now's the time. I think this is it. I think we've got to go all in on short-term rental. And my husband was like, yeah, okay, you're insane, but like, okay, we can do this. And we got to a place where we had the capital to be able to purchase our first home. And so we started looking. We met with our real estate agents here in Indianapolis and who also own short-term rentals here. They took us out to dinner and they were most excited to talk to us about our vision for our management business, our co-hosting business. And so we shared a little bit about that with them. And I remember fast forward to May 10th of 2023. I am in labor in the hospital. I am being connected to who would become our first co-hosting client through that real estate agent. And my husband is on the phone with our inspector for the property that we were under contract with, seeing if we were actually going to be able to close on this property in 20 days. And we did. So we got our first short-term rental here in Indy. We started our co-hosting business at the same time. And we're going to talk about how the cabin project came to be during this conversation too. But it has been a whirlwind of roughly 16 months to say the least.
That I can totally relate with that to where it's one of those like there's no better time than a chaotic period where like I shouldn't say chaotic when there's a lot of stuff going on. It always seems like, well, this is the right time. Like why not now? And most people look at you like you're crazy. And that was very similar for us. It's like we had a lot going on, got into our first STR. They're like, are you sure you want to do that? And I'm like, why not now? Like it's only gonna get better from here. So that's amazing to hear. So your first short-term rental property, you still own that today, correct?
We do. Yeah, we do. It's here in
Nice.
Indianapolis.
Nice. And how does that property itself do? Is it like a single family home? Is it a condo? Is it a
Yep, it's a single family home. It's 4 bed, 2 bath. So again, Jordan, I think with anything, there are definitely some learning lessons. And we learned with this property in particular that the bed to bath ratio in Indy is really important for people because they're coming here. Indianapolis is different than your traditional vacation market because people are coming here for events. And we have these events that happen every single year. And we're a huge sports community, obviously. And we're also I think our state motto used to be like the crossroads of America, and it's no longer that, which makes my heart feel a little bit sad because I really liked that. And it's super true. Every year for the holidays, our properties that we have here get booked. Every time there's a holiday, it's like, oh, we're coming into town because it's a central meeting place for our family that's all over the United States. And they're booking these properties so that they can all stay together. Our friends who haven't seen each other from college in years, it's just like such a central meeting point. But our bed to bath ratio being a 4-2, we sleep 10. If we were a 3-2, our revenue would probably be $20,000 higher annually than it is. Not even joking. I know this data because I've seen it at our other properties we're co-hosting. And here in Indy, you don't have to be like in the Smokies. I feel like you have to have the coolest game room and movie theater room. And even then it's like maybe not enough. It's like, how can we continue to one up each other? And it's like, listen, if you just put a fire pit in your backyard in Indy and take some nice twilight photos, you're going to be solid. Like you're already doing more than most people are in this market. And so, again, for us, we're going, all right, how can we continue to expand? We took a look at a couple other properties that are near us recently using a tool called STRIQ, which is super awesome property evaluation tool. And in looking at the others that are around us, they have twilight photos and we didn't yet. So we're doing that next week. And just to see where we land. But we may consider adding a hot tub. That would probably add $10,000 to $15,000 more annually for us, which that pays for itself and makes sense. So,
yeah, it's funny how, and we talk about this a lot, where markets are different. The bar to be unique and standing out is so different from market to market. And I love that you referred to the Smokies, which a lot of people do because it's like the say all be all of short-term rentals. Like short-term rentals typically do well there, but the bar to stand out, very much like Scott said, is so high to where it's like, if you had a hot tub, it's like, great, you have now achieved the baseline of that market. Like you need a hot tub versus adding a hot tub in Indy. Now you are standing out, or even just twilight photos allows you to stand out. I think finding different ways to stand out specific to your market is so key. And then what you can do on top of that, and I don't know if you guys have looked into this or not, is looking at other markets and what I say, this is the acceptable time to steal. Going to those markets and be like, oh, my market does not have this, but it's doing well in this market. Let me bring this over here and see how this does. Have you guys looked into doing anything like that?
yeah, we've looked at it a little bit, Jordan. Something that we've noticed that happens in a lot of other markets, and this is very subtle, but it's an important piece of the design, are mural. So we did actually add a mural, and we're going to in the spring. We're going to add a fence mural. We might get this done in November, but the woman who I work to do it, she is amazing, and she's worked on numerous design projects with us. Is having a baby literally in like 2 weeks, and she's like, "Steph, I cannot get this done for you right now." But she's like, "If the weather's still nice in November, I'll totally do it in November." I'm like, "All right," but otherwise it can wait till the spring. But yeah, again, I think too here in Indy, even just design and specifically like themed design, or I like to say branded design, can make a huge difference for a property. I think we see this in other markets, and that's kind of an idea that you can go, okay, how can we take this and implement? We actually did this here in Indianapolis with a property that we connected with the owners through a Facebook group. The property is 10 minutes from our personal home where we live, and we designed it, and we did all Indy 500 theme, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and it is so cool. In fact, it's doing so well that they just purchased another property here that's like 5 minutes away from that first one. So I'm like, this just goes to show that, again, when you prioritize creating an experience for your guests, even in a market like Indianapolis, that's what people are going to pick first, and they're going to pay a premium for it. So, and again, I think sometimes it can be really easy to be like, how do we stand out and what do we do? And it's like, really just take a step back, evaluate what other markets are doing, and evaluate what makes sense for your ideal guest avatar as well and for your market. And then, if a $1,500 mural can make a difference for the way that your photos stand out and help you position yourself and increase your ADR, then that's a worth it investment. It's not the investment of let's convert this entire basement into a full game room. You know what I mean? Like it's a lower barrier to entry market here in India, I feel like.
Yeah, it seems like that. And I think it's this concept of what we call stacking. So like you've added a mural. It's something you can continue to stack on. Start with a mural, and then you can add something else. You don't need to boil the ocean all in one. You don't need to drop 100,000 to make your property a Disney themed property in Indianapolis necessarily, but start with the mural and then go from there and understand what works and roll with the market. Now, I'm curious because we are actually looking to add a mural to one of our properties. How has the mural performed with your indie property? Like, have you seen a bump in revenue as a result of it?
So the one that we have in our guest bedroom, it's our fourth bedroom upstairs in our one of our bedrooms up there, and we had it from the very beginning. So I can't tell you that one specifically is a reason that people are booking our property, but I can tell you that in our reviews, that's the bedroom that gets the most comments. It's like my kids love this bedroom and they had such a great time, and the mural's so beautiful. Like we do get comments on it. I can't tell you that has necessarily impacted our revenue or when our one that we do outside on our fence. I definitely think well because it becomes a cover photo for us, right? So anytime this comes back to our design and branding side that we do too, but anytime that we're designing a property, we want to think about where are our 5 cover photos back going to be, those 5 moments that our guests are going to swipe through and be like, I am going to take a photo there. And we are going to make so many memories there, right? Like they're already telling themselves the story of what they're going to experience at your property. So the one that we want to put on our fence is definitely one of those Instagram worthy moments, I guess you could say. But it's outside by the fire pit. It's a place of connection for our guests. It's definitely a place where our guests are hanging out. And to that point too, this is another area that we know our guests are booking because of the backyard that we and what we've cultivated, even just with what we have, which is a fire pit, outdoor dining. We've got our egg chairs. We have an outdoor grill. And again, it's one of those things that like that sounds really common, but here in the Indianapolis market, that's actually not super common.
Really? I don't know why, to me, that seems surprising.
Again, Jordan, I think that we have people who come into this market. So, and this is always the case, bringing in my fashion background again. Whatever's happening on the coast is Indianapolis is always 2 to 3 years behind. So from a fashion perspective, Indy was always 2 to 3 years behind. I think that's 100% what we're seeing in the short-term rental market as well. So what we've seen happen in Nashville, Scottsdale, some of these like larger markets, we're slowly starting to see it here. But we have a lot of investors that invest in this market that are like, I'll buy the house. I can buy it at a really low barrier to entry. We can throw some furniture in it. We can list it on Airbnb and do okay. Instead of thinking, let's really think about the guest experience. Now the tables are starting to turn. We're seeing investors who are prioritizing the guest experience, who are prioritizing adding some of these extra, even small amenities like a grill up here in Indy. And it makes a difference. It makes a difference. And I can say this too from the perspective of we have a property that we co-hosted, that very first one from May of 2023. Whoever designed the property, they had a loft. She had a loft. And they put a kids' playroom up there, which it's right by the stairs. So I wouldn't feel comfortable putting my kids up there just to like play and free for all. Also, we were noticing that, yes, people were coming with their families, like young kids to the property, but the majority are families with like middle school, high school age kiddos who are coming for various different sporting events, or they're visiting kids on Butler's campus because it's right by Butler. So with that playroom, I was kind of taking a look at the other properties we manage in the area and a couple that we've designed that have game rooms. And I said, hey, let's take this playroom and take everything out of it and just put a 3-in-1 mini game table and an arcade game in this space. There's plenty of room for this. So we did that, and I'm not paying Jordan overnight for occupancy. We just did this in September. For occupancy went from 45% to 60% overnight, literally within 24 hours of me changing the photos on that listing. So changing the photos and adding those amenities. So again, it's like very subtle, but super meaningful.
Yeah, that's incredible, and I think a lot of hosts always think it's the big change or the big thing that's going to move the needle, and a lot of times it is such small things that they don't realize that are right in front of them that they could fix today for not a whole lot of money. I think the one thing that a lot of people don't think through is like everyone says, get good photos, right? Don't take iPhone photos, get a real estate photographer out there to take photos. And we like to take that a step further is like, okay, now the industry itself is professionalizing, right? Now, some markets may be behind compared to others, but overall, the short-term rental industry is maturing and professionalizing to where now everyone is doing real estate photography. Everyone is doing these shots. How do you stand out? And this is where we try to focus on trying to find a photographer who knows how to capture STR specifically, capturing through the right lens, the right angle, the right color grading, things that I'm not good at, but finding someone who is. And if you can do that, then you stand a better chance of versus 1,000 listings who all have real estate photography on their listings. The one property in there that has a cool angle with the right color grading of their place is able to stand out. And it's simple things like that I think you can do starting today that can make a difference.
100%. You are hitting the nail on the head, Jordan.
It always seems so obvious, but then, it's until someone else says it, then the light bulb goes off for people. And they're like, oh my gosh, like all I got to do is update photos. It's like, how did I not think about this all along? Sometimes it's the smallest things.
It really is. And that literally just happened with us with these twilight photos. And I mean, like, our property here that does the best has twilight photos. Why for our other properties was I not like, yo, we should definitely have these? And then you look at the data and the data supports that reality. And I'm like, oh my gosh, just missing out over here. But again, sometimes we're too close to our own businesses, right? This is why we use various different tools and or mentors to be able to help support us and see things that we cannot see because we're too all in on the business.
Hey guys, real quick, the only way we can continue to grow this show to bring on bigger and better guests is if you guys rate, review, and share the show. So, if you could take 2 seconds and leave us a quick 5-star review on Apple or Spotify, it would mean the world to us. But even better than that, we'll be able to reach more real estate investors and help them build out their dreams through unique short-term rentals. Now back to the show.
Now, I know we could talk about this first property all day long, but what I want to do is transition from that into your 11 cabins and venue, if I'm not mistaken, out in Jamestown, Kentucky.
Yeah.
How did you go from your first property to saying, well, I did well with one, why not build 11 in a venue? How does one person go from 1 to 11 in a venue? I feel like that's a big jump.
Oh, it's a huge jump, Jordan. It's a huge jump. So when we started our co-hosting business in April 2023, I shared a post on Instagram about our vision for what we wanted our short-term rental business to be. And so I talked about our property that I knew we were going to get in Indy. I talked about our co-hosting business, a few other properties that we wanted to have. And the last slide was called The Big Vision. And this big vision was a piece of land somewhere, preferably near the mountain or the water, where we can put multiple different structures, whether that's A-frames, cabins, Airstreams, tents, like, I don't know what it's going to be, but this is what I want it to be. So it's this sort of like adult summer camp vibes, plus a space for retreats and events and a space where families can come, all of these different ideas. Okay, so I literally shared this on Instagram in April. July 17th of 2023, I get a text from my esthetician here in Indianapolis who has known me since 2016. And she was like, just in case you want to jump in with 2 feet, there was a Facebook post from another one of her clients who had this piece of land, 9 acres down in Jamestown, Kentucky, which is right by Lake Cumberland, the lake that we have been to before. And they were going to build cabins one by one. And so the post was kind of like, hey, we're building cabins. If you've been looking for your next home or your next vacation home or your next short-term rental, like this is the place to do it. And so I friend requested her within a minute and sent her a message. Her name's Valerie. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm interested in your cabins. This is who connected me with you. And I just want to hear a little bit more. So we started talking and I started sharing the vision with her. And they were like, wow, this is what we were hoping would happen. And can we go to lunch? So my husband and I went to lunch with them. Mind you, my husband is like, there's no way in any reality that we can make this even happen. Like, where do we get the where does $2.1 million come from, Steph? Like, I don't know what this even looks like. And I was like, I don't know, but like, it's one of those things, Jordan, and I've always been this way as an entrepreneur, that when something is put in front of you, you have two choices. Option number one is you can take the opportunity and you can figure it out. Option number two is maybe it's not the right time and you need to go a different direction. But with this, I couldn't even explain it, but I was like, I don't know what it is, but something in my gut tells me this is going to work out and we have to do this. And I don't know. That's all there is to it. We have to figure it out. So I started talking about the opportunity on Instagram and Facebook and had multiple, probably 50 different conversations with people who were interested in potentially partnering with, because that's how I positioned it. I was like, here's the opportunity. We're going to need partners if we're going to do it. And let's have some conversations. So my CPA for the Weber Co. was actually one of them. And then a couple that we met inside of a mastermind program that we're in was another. And then we went down in August of 2023 to look at the land. The cabins had not been built yet, but they were getting ready to build the first one, because the builder and owner of the land basically was like, I have a crew and we're going to get to work. So we're just busting a move and we've got to do this. We went down, we fell in love with it. Our CPA came with us, who became a partner. And that night, the builders and owners of the land took us out to dinner and said, hey, we want in on this too. So there's 4 couples that have formed a beautiful partnership to build cabins on the Cumberland. It is 9 acres. It is riverfront property. We do have a private boat ramp out onto the Cumberland River. And it's technically 9 structures, but it's 11 cabins, or it's 8 structures, but 11 cabins, because we built one triplex to be a super unit on this development as well. And then we are building a space for events. Largely, I think it's going to be family reunions, retreat, that kind of thing. We will be able to host weddings, but it's very much going to be a you're coming to host your wedding at this venue because we have the cabins and because you can make this a whole weekend long event, versus it being a one night thing. And it's very much the DIY countryside wedding vibes. And there's absolutely a market for that. And we know that. So, yeah, it'll be cool. That's what we're building. And then we also, before we decided to do this, the owner has actually sold one of the plots to someone else. And he came back to us probably 6 months ago and said, hey guys, I don't want this anymore. We were like, no kidding. So he sold it back to us, and we're going to turn that into an indoor arcade game center and put barrel signs on.
Oh, that's genius. That's so smart. So how many, remind me again, you say it was 9 acres?
Yeah, 9 acres.
Okay. And what do the numbers look like on those cabins?
So I run everything at worst case scenario. So that I'm like, worst case, what happens here? Worst case scenario, our ADR, I think we ran at $165 a night. And roughly $30,000 a month for just the cabins alone, and not incorporating any event or retreat revenue, etc. And with those numbers, we still were profitable. So all of that made so much sense for us. Our best case scenario is that we're doing more like 50 to 60K a month. I shouldn't say best case. That's our goal. And then, beyond that, it's going to be the cherry on top. And I absolutely think we'll get there with everything that we're building and really turning it into a micro resort. To be honest with you, Jordan, this was a little bit difficult the deal was a little bit difficult for us to evaluate, because you can look at a single family cabin, which is what we did, and say, okay, here's what the numbers look like down here for a single family cabin. But what we're building is so much different than that. We're building a resort with amenities and a pickleball court and a playground for kids. We are building a space that you don't have to leave. You can come for your whole vacation and you can be there for your whole vacation. And that's super powerful to have all of those different amenities. And it doesn't exist in this market. So we can certainly look at other markets and go, okay, what makes sense? But yeah, that piece of it was a little bit tricky, but we'll see. I think that again, it's like one of those gut feelings that, and I make decisions somewhat based on data and somewhat based on what I know is practical from a branding and marketing perspective too. And from a just like, I know what this is going to turn into. So we'll keep driving this and this is what it's got to be. Although the bank was like, that's great that you have that feeling stuff, but like, we need some numbers. I was like, yeah, I get it. I understand. So anyway, we did find a local bank to finance the deal, which was phenomenal. And they've been great to work with.
That's awesome. So are all 11 cabins, they're up and open operational, or you're still building
We're
some?
still building. And so we have 3 cabins and then our triplex is done as well. We technically have
Okay.
6 units that are live, rented, operational, and have 5-star reviews. And guests are like, we got a review this week that said that this was the best vacation I've ever had. I was so sad to leave. And I was like, how maybe you were sad to leave, but like, how cool was that we're like making that impression? And almost every guest is like, we're going to come back. We can't wait to come back, etc. And this is why our tagline is your family's new getaway. Your family's new getaway tradition is our tagline. And we did that very intentionally because we wanted it to be A space for families, but B, something that you come back to every single year. And it becomes your family's go-to spot. It's like the kids, no matter what age, are so excited to come because of the memories that they've created there and the connection that they feel as a family there. So we kind of started first and foremost with that, and that vision will continue to grow as we grow.
Absolutely. And how good of a feeling is it when you get that review of them saying like, this was the best vacation I've ever had? Like, to me, I can't explain the feeling to people who aren't in the space. Like, it's just surreal. And it's almost in a sense like a drug. It's like, you just want more. You want more of it. You want to keep doing it. You want to enhance it for every single guest that comes through the door.
Yeah, 100%. We have definitely prioritized the guest experience. And again, our competition down there is it is slim. And again, it's different, right? It's a very different mentality. We definitely came into it with the business mentality and the guest experience mentality. And so we get comments from guests that are like, oh my gosh, your kitchen is so well stocked. I'm like, what? I really didn't do anything above the norm of what should be included in an Airbnb, right? And that's the term that our guests use. So I don't like to say we own Airbnbs, but anyway, that's another topic for another day. But I do think that it's one of those things that if you're going to be in the hospitality business, you have to really understand what that means. And we are first and foremost a hospitality space. We're building a micro resort and we prioritize our guests and the guest experience. And this is why we're building what we're building and being super intentional about it.
Now, with that, you mentioned a pickleball court and all the amenities, which, side note, my business partner, Mike, I'm sure he rolls his eyes every time I say it. I'm like, I want a pickleball court. I don't care. I want a pickleball court. And we have 3 cabins in Kentucky that are up against Cliffside. He's like, probably not the right space for a pickleball court. I'm like, I get that, but how unique could it be if you put it on stilts? I'm totally kidding. But my question is, have you built a pickleball court and all the amenities, or is that something where it's like you have some, but you're going to continue adding on as you go?
Okay, so we were on a call last night as a team. So we meet usually once, maybe twice a month, just depending on what's going on with the cabins. Our builder last night was like, you guys are not going to believe how far along we are. He was like, I think we're going to be close to done by Christmas. And I was like, what? Like, we're going to be close to done with this whole development by Christmas. That's insane to me. So we busted a move, but what we prioritized, Jordan, was doing our rental units first. So getting our cabins live so that we could get some income coming in as we're paying interest on this loan that we have, and obviously have other expenses to pay, and also the furnishing, all the things, right? So that was our priority. But that being said, I mean, again, because our builder has a great team down there, we should be fully wrapped with everything really by the spring. And that means that we'll be able to increase our revenue significantly come summer because we will have those amenities down there. And again, it's just one of those that's like, it's a need in this market. 4 million people a year go to Lake Cumberland. It's insane. And the Cumberland River is one of the best spots for trout fishing. I don't personally know much about fishing, but that's what I've been told. So we've created a space where you can come, you can fish. Like it's a choose your own adventure kind of getaway.
So you glossed over it like it wasn't a big detail, and maybe I missed a piece here. You said you didn't have much competition in the area, right?
Yeah.
Yet 4 million people are coming to Lake Cumberland.
I'm telling you, it's wild. It's wild. Yeah, we When I say we don't have much competition in the area, I mean, there are certainly other cabins and homes that you can rent. And I have seen some new build or some renovation projects, some remodels. But to be honest, most of what exists down there is cabins that have been family owned since 1980 and still have the same 1980s furniture in them and have not been super well taken care of. And there's silverware missing. And like, it's just one of those that you're like, what are we going to walk into with this Airbnb? And we don't roll that way. It's not how we do things. So yeah, 4 million people a year. And, again, Lake Cumberland is huge. So when I'm talking about our area, we're in Jamestown. And so there are several marinas and we're really close to State Dock, which is a huge access point to get onto the lake. But the lake itself is, I don't know, hours and hours long, right? So there are other little communities where people can stay. But if they're used to staying in Monticello, which is about an hour from us, who's to say that they're not going to come stay in Jamestown now that they know that we exist and have this space with all of these different amenities? And for us, this is where marketing comes into play.
Right. And that's the piece right there that's so critical is like if you can, what a lot of STR hosts do is they tap into one channel of traffic, right? People that are going to that area. That's who they lean on. That's who they rely on for their business to be, generate revenue. Where I think a lot of people drop the ball, and I think you'll love this, is this other channel of people that don't even realize you exist today. But through your marketing efforts, you're now on their radar. And they're like, oh my gosh, I never had a need to go to Jamestown, but now I do. Now I do because there's this destination property in Jamestown that I can go to with my family. I don't think people realize there's an almost, not necessarily unlimited, but the potential there is exponential to where you can take both of those traffic drivers and combine those together to continue to increase your revenue. Because I think what a lot of people do is, they look at the two levers. This is what I call them, ADR and occupancy. If you increase ADR, your occupancy goes down, right? If you want to increase your occupancy, you got to drop your ADR. Yeah. But I think through marketing efforts and building properties that themselves are the destination and stand out, you have an opportunity to basically take both of those levers and push them up together and increase your revenue.
This is what the Weber Co. is all about now, Jordan. Like, this is what we're doing. I always say we're creating destination properties where your guests are coming to you, not because of the location, but because of the property itself, because of the experience that you have cultivated. And that, if there's anything Airbnb, say what you will about it, they've done a great job of building their brand. And they have shown us what they prioritize between unique stays and icons and some of these like PR stunts that they like to pull. But it shows what they're trying to share with guests Airbnb is all about. And everything that it boils down to is ultimately the experience. So really taking the concepts that hotels honestly have had in place for years. We have the pool and we have the views and we have like all of these different amenities and bringing them into the short-term rental space. It's really very interesting. And those of us who get it will thrive through this.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people, the traditional way of thinking with STRs is go find a market that's in a prime location where people are going to. And it's not to say that you shouldn't focus on that, but I think location, if you focus on trying to provide a unique stay or an experiential stay for guests, carries a little bit less weight because you are in fact providing a destination property versus the traditional thought of like, well, I'm going to go into a market where the demand is there and I'm just going to tap it. I'm going to plug into that demand and that's what's going to feed my business.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I think it's a challenging thing to overcome because there is a little bit of, if you don't know how to market effectively or build a brand or design properly, that concept of building a destination property itself could flop. And as a result, not produce the returns and the revenue that you're looking for.
Yeah, I think that's what's interesting about the short-term rental industry is that you get to decide what you want to do with it, right? And what your priorities are. And someone who's listening to this could say, oh, well, worst case scenario, you guys are making $30,000 a month. I have one property that does that for me. Okay, that's great. Like that's what you chose to do. And also from an entry-level standpoint, the capital there may have looked a little bit different for you in terms of your access. But also for us, our goal was not, let's build like one huge super property. It was like, let's build a micro resort and brand the crap out of this and like make it amazing, right? Like that was my goal. And aside from that too, it's a commercial property. And so for us, it being in the micro resort space, that the sale of that looks a lot different than the sale of your Airbnb property that you're just being compared to all of the other single family homes in your area and going, oh, well, this house over here sold for $2 million. So I don't really care how much in revenue you did. That is what your home is worth, right? That as a business looks a lot different.
I was going to say, I think there's tremendous value in it. I assume you're familiar with Isaac French and Live Oak Lake.
I'm not. Oh, yes. I just heard him on a podcast recently.
So he was talking about this concept when he sold Live Oak Lake, of how if he had sold it as individual properties versus a business, that he would have gotten significantly less on the sale of that property. What allowed him to sell it for, I think, like $7 million was the fact that he sold it as a business. So he sold the properties come with it, but everything else within the business comes with it. The marketing, the email list, the social media account, the brand that they built, the operation, the systems, everything on the back end, sold it as a business. I think people are starting to realize the potential of that, to where, not to say just buying a single STR is a bad idea, because it's not. And everyone, I think, needs to start somewhere and get into the game somehow. I think that's a good way to do it. Not everyone's going out and building 11 properties in a venue like yourself. But selling it as a business, I think, takes the potential for the return and the revenue on that sale to increase so much more. And I think you're going to see a lot more people doing that, which I think is so smart, because now it becomes a business sale versus a real estate transaction.
100%. Yeah. I remember listening to him on a podcast, actually, and he was talking about how lucrative their social media and their email marketing channels were. He also shared that their listings were like unlisted from Airbnb. I can't remember the exact scenario of what happened there, but he was like, overnight, we had to figure out a direct booking strategy so that we could pay our bill. And he was like, that was one of the best things to ever happen to us, because we leveraged influencers in order to grow our social presence. And that's where a huge majority of our direct bookings were coming from. And I was like, oh, you get it. I love this.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where I think a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot of people, I always say that, SDR hosts see direct bookings as, how do I get direct bookings? Well, great. I need a direct booking site. I need to capture emails. Great. And they'll do that. But that's all they do. And then they're like, well, why am I not getting any direct bookings? It's like, well, what are you doing with that email list? Well, nothing. I have a device that captures it, but then I send maybe a few emails every once in a while. It's like, okay, well, you need an email marketing campaign or strategy with that. Great. Are you talking about it on social media at all? Well, no. It's like, oh, okay. And if they are, where are you pointing them? Well, I'm pointing them to my Airbnb link. It's like, well, why would you not direct that traffic to your direct booking site? So there's other components that come with it, to where if you know how to do it from a marketing perspective and also building a brand, I think that becomes so critical and so valuable, to where you can then start to see direct bookings coming in, to where you have way more control, as opposed to Airbnb and the fees they charge and everything else that goes with that.
Yeah, 100%. Our goal with the cabins is to be at least 50% direct booking. And that will take us some time to build, obviously, with the brand recognition and our marketing strategies and all the things. But one thing is certainly for sure, that when you come to us from Airbnb, you will be redirected to book direct with us in the future. That for sure. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I just hosted a STR Marketing Simplified Masterclass this week. It's a free masterclass that I opened up for short-term rental owners. 300 people signed up for it. And I was like, if that doesn't tell you the need for this and the desire for this, and the hosts are really trying to figure it out. Those who are really committed to this being a hospitality business for them are really trying to figure it out, because we don't want to rely on Airbnb and VRBO. And again, these platforms are great, but I, as an influencer, I put so many eggs in the Instagram basket and got to a point with that business. I actually got locked out of my Instagram account for 3 weeks, which sounds really dramatic. And honestly, as an influencer, it was, because it was over Black Friday. I had to refund partners. Like, it was a whole thing. And I realized in that, like, I never want to do this again. I never want to let my business be all in the hands of somebody else, or some algorithm that I really don't have any control over. Some platform I really don't have any control over. And I also have gotten to a point as a short-term rental owner where I don't want to just lower my rate to try to get bookings. I want to have more control over that. So, while lowering your rate can work to get bookings, while optimizing your listing can work, sometimes it's like there's only so much you can do. So how do you diversify? And that happens through the power of marketing, and really having a marketing strategy and an understanding of what that needs to look like to drive those direct bookings. But to your point, Jordan, too, So many hosts have heard you've got to have a direct booking site. Direct bookings are the way to go. And it's like, that's fine and great. But when you're building sites that are not SEO oriented whatsoever, there's zero SEO strategy. Two, there's no marketing strategy for you to get people to the site. And then you're mad that you spent $3,500 building a direct booking site and no one landed on it. There's a reason for it. People have to be invited to it. And you are the one who is responsible for that.
Absolutely. And so I have one question for you, because the Weber Co., you focus on, correct me if I'm wrong, branding, marketing, and design, correct?
Yep.
Of those three, and maybe it's all of them, what is the biggest pain point that you see most hosts having? Are they dropping the ball on not creating an effective brand? Are they not doing the right marketing? Do they have a great brand and they're marketing right, but their design looks like it's from the 70s? Like, what's the biggest pain point?
So I would say that it starts with brand, because brand is the foundation for solid marketing strategies that are actually going to work. Brand is also where you should start from a design perspective as well. When we're talking about brand strategy, brand is not your fonts, your logos, and your colors, or your visual, or your photos, etc. Right? Like, I think we've often heard about branding in those terms, and it's not. Branding is how you're perceived. It is what people are saying about you in your review. It is what the market has to say about who you are. And if you do your brand strategy correctly at the beginning, you get to drive that narrative and you get to drive that brand story, right? It's the emotional connection that we have to our audiences. And brand is where there is trust built so that your audience feels like, oh, I can trust you to deliver on the promise that you're telling me you're going to deliver on. And it is the success of your marketing strategies. So branding is all about your core messaging. And just laying that foundation so that you can connect to your audience and they will actually trust you to convert. In branding, you also outline and identify your ideal guest avatar. If you're a short-term rental owner and or in the boutique hotel sphere, you're going to outline that. And that has to inform what you're doing from a design perspective as well. Of course, with design, you're incorporating your market research, but you're also going, okay, this is great, but like, what's in alignment with our brand and the brand experience that we're providing? So if you're providing this like really boutique experience, maybe you're doing branded hand soaps. Maybe you're having like, you have from those branded items that feel like those little extras that are just those thoughtful touches that subtly your guests are going, oh, like this feels legit because of the perception, right? Because of the perceived value that comes with a little tiny branded hand soap. It's silly, but it's so true. It's so true. Like what psychologically happens with a powerful brand. So anyway, I would agree it's branding, but they don't usually know that that's the issue, Jordan. And that's the thing, right? Usually hosts are coming to me going, hey, I have a direct booking website, but no one's landing on it. Can you help me with my marketing strategies? And I go to the site and I'm like, the ultimate family getaway. And I'm like, everyone said that. The ultimate getaway in name your city. Everybody says I could copy and paste that brand message to anybody, any other short-term rental business. So thing number one is that. From a marketing perspective, the reason that no one's going to your website is because it was built on one of the direct booking platforms and it's not SEO. It is literally just for you to be able to say, hey, past guest, you want to come stay again? Here's the link to book direct. And that's it. It was not set up with SEO in mind or with you really building a brand and a narrative that you are crafting. So anyway, that's what I would say to that question, but you have to implement your marketing strategies to support the brand too.
Yeah, the brand piece, I think, for whatever reason, it seems so simple, but at the same point, so complex to people. Because when you, I think, and you probably see this a lot, is when you ask them what their brand is, they probably give you an answer and be like, great, but that's not your brand. What's your brand? And then you probably get like the blank stares if they're like, I don't know then. I don't know what my brand is. I thought my brand was whatever their company name is. Oh, and by the way, I got this cool logo that I had someone create for me. It's like, again, great, but what is your brand? What is your story? What is the reason why people come and stay with you? To where I think what a lot of people, I think where the power of a brand comes into play is when someone leaves your property, right? There's a lot of lost potential there with hosts of they go back home, they're like, what'd you do this week? And be like, oh, I stayed at an Airbnb. Cool. But what happens, what would happen if they left and they'd be like, I stayed at a, whatever the brand's name, cabin or place, right? They start to attribute the property with the brand versus just an Airbnb that they're laying their head on. I think that's so critical to where then in their mind, they're starting to become an advocate for your brand once they've left your property. It's almost like an unintentional, it's I don't know, marketing done for you by past guests who are advocating to other people. Like, you have to go stay at this cabin at Lake Cumberland. They've never heard of it before. They're not just saying you need to go stay at an Airbnb. I think that's where brand becomes so valuable and so critical for companies and SDR hosts.
100%. And again, earlier I said Airbnb's done a phenomenal job at building their brand. I don't want to ride on the coattails of Airbnb. I want to have my own brand that guests are doing exactly that. Oh my gosh, you're not going to believe where I stay at Lake Cumberland, and you've got to go check out Cabins on the Cumberland because it was the best experience I've ever had. And that's what we want our guests to say. And again, that shift, you guys, takes time. Like, that shift, you have to be responsible for driving that and leading it. This is why, like, you can't just do one thing that you're like, oh, we sent out an email, or, oh, we included our brand name on our listing or in a picture somewhere or whatever it may be, right? Like, you have to consistently drive home. Like, thanks so much for staying with us at Cabins on the Cumberland, or whatever your property name is, or your brand name. Maybe you're a property management company or a co-host. Like, thanks so much for staying with Hosted by the Webers. I do that in all of our guest messages. I'm like, hey, I'm Steph. I'm the owner of Hosted by the Webers. Hosted by the Webers, you're going to see multiple different times, and then you're going to hear from me after your stay as well, introducing yourself that way. So now when people are like, oh, I want to go back to Indy, and we want to stay with Hosted by the Webers, not, oh, we're going to book an Airbnb.
Right, because then you run the risk of them just looking for another Airbnb, and they've, since last time they traveled to the area, they may have forgotten about your place. Like, sure, some people would be like, oh, I remember that place we went to, let's just go there again. Like, there's a chance that happens, but then there's also the chance that a new property comes up there, ooh, that one looks way better, versus the control comes into play as like you said, hosted by the Webers,
hosted by the Webers, yeah.
Hosted by the Webers. So hosted by the Webers sticks in their head more so when they say, okay, when I come back to this place, I'm going to stay with them. Now, maybe hosted by the Webers has more properties that I can choose from, which is great. But then they psychologically associate going back to that place as staying with hosted by the Webers, not I need to go find an Airbnb.
100%. 100%. And to your point earlier too, branding is about creating a memorable experience that your guests can recall and that your guests are loyal to. So branding enhances that guest loyalty. And if you are someone who has this space where, I mean, this happens, even if you're a short-term rental owner that has one property, I just shared earlier, Indianapolis has these events that happen every single year. If the firefighters who come for their firefighter convention every year had a great experience at our property, why would they not stay with us again? I'm using that example because the firefighters did say, hey, we loved our stay. Can we stay with you again next year, right? So again, that happens across multiple markets. Even if you're a short-term rental owner that has properties in multiple markets, if they'd had a good experience with you at one home, they will have another great experience with you if that is how you prioritize your brand. And who's to say that you shouldn't be marketing to them? You should be. That's exactly what you should be doing. And that leaves a lasting impression.
Absolutely. And so you said one thing that I love, and it's this concept of creating an experience and showcasing a marketing experience. So I'm curious, as having been a past influencer, so I assume social media marketing is a key piece of what you do. Do you guys leverage social media marketing to showcase experience? And do you also tap in and leverage content creators or influencers in any sort?
Love this question, Jordan. We absolutely do. In fact, we just shared last week, we've been building our Cabins on the Cumberland Instagram account. I started it, but again, we didn't have a lot to be able to share right at the very beginning, right? So we just did our first lifestyle brand shoot. I'm going to give you tip number one here for anyone who's listening. I got a question this week about how do I attract quality followers? And what you're really asking me is not only quality followers, but followers that are going to turn into guests. How do we do that? And it starts with quality content. So the very first thing that I would tell you is your listing photos and bad Canva graphics are not going to be the thing that brings good followers to you that are ready to convert into guests. So invest in lifestyle photography and lifestyle videography. And if you're going to use social media marketing, you need to be prepared to have 70% of your content on the platform be video content. That is what Instagram prioritizes. And if you're using, whether you're using Instagram or you're using TikTok, obviously, or, if you're incorporating Pinterest in some capacity, you may be driving traffic to your blog. But the other area where video is important is for your website itself so that people can really understand who you are and what you stand for. We actually did this for our own property here in Indianapolis on our page that is our guidebook. We have a whole video introducing ourselves, introducing the home, introducing Indianapolis. And our guests are like, this is so cool. Like, Like, I'm already getting a taste of the experience before I get there. And so when you've done your brand strategy, you've outlined what that guest experience looked like. You've outlined how you want them to feel first and foremost when they set foot on your property. You've outlined what you want them to be saying about you, what that perception is. You're outlining the story that they're going to experience at your property, the reason that they're actually coming to your property, which, by the way, they're not picking you because you have a clean space. That's like that should be an added bonus, right? Your social media presence and experience has to mirror that of what they experience on site with you. So anytime that you are creating social media content, you have to be tapping into the story of what you can do at this property, what you can do in this location, what our other guests are experiencing, and likely incorporate some behind the scenes. Our guests love a good transformation story, right? And short-term rentals, wow, we have such a huge opportunity to be able to share that and show that. They also want to feel like they're connected. As short-term rental owners, we have this really unique opportunity to feel like we can connect on a more human level with our guests who are actually staying with us. And I think that's something super powerful that has to shine through on social media as well. So yes, we are using social media. A couple weeks ago, we shared a post on Instagram, and it was one post. It was a video about, I think, fishing on the river. And the call to action was DM us the word fall for a special code to be able to use when you stay with us now through December 20th. So we have multiple people DM us the word fall. Mind you, we have less than 600 followers right now. Okay, so we're obviously very much still growing the account. We got $1,500 in bookings out of that in 24 hours. So even with a small audience, with good quality content, with good calls to action, with good hooks, this is what drives action and drives our audience to engage with us. And Instagram loves when you encourage people to comment or to DM you or to share or to save. I don't even look at likes anymore. Likes are kind of irrelevant because people use the platform so much differently. I want to look at how we're encouraging shares, saves, comments, and DMs, and obviously website traffic as well to drive action. So yes, we are using social media. I absolutely think it's an important part of what you're doing, and it can be done in multiple different ways. So I did not create a social media account for the Golden Lux Bungalow, which is our property here in Indy, because I knew for us, number one, it didn't feel like a unique enough day for me to create content all the time around this property in Indianapolis. I knew that my marketing strategy for that was going to rely much heavier on on email marketing, and then also on Facebook groups. So we share our link and so forth in Facebook groups about traveling to Indianapolis and things to do here. And every community has these kinds of Facebook groups. So anyway, we leveraged that, but we built our co-hosting business. And so what we're doing with co-hosting helps to support that property as well. We also promote it through I should say I promote it. My husband is not on social media. You will not see him hanging out there. I promote it through my personal brand as well. So, that's something that you could tap into or take a look at are you building a personal brand? I have another good friend, Zoe Berghoff, who I think that you're maybe connected to. And this is exactly what she does. And so again, it can be done multiple different ways. I do absolutely think it's lucrative, but you have to be committed to it, and you have to have a strategy and create quality content. But it's not just about content. So strategy, content, conversations, collaborations, your 3 C's of social media marketing. Okay, so that's that. Speaking of collaborations, we do use influencers. So we are absolutely partnering with influencers to do giveaways with us, which encourage their followers to now follow us. Now I have all these new followers that are going to see our content, and that I can go and DM, welcome them to our space, and send them a code if I so choose, or have some kind of a call to action, and you can automate so much of that as well. But yeah, it's incredibly powerful. We have a couple of influencer stays coming up in the next month, and I am so stoked about them.
Yeah, I think every influencer and content creator, at least from our experience, is created. They're different, right? Some, the benefit is they shoot quality content, and maybe they don't have a huge following, but they have a very, how do I say this, loyal following. They have 1,200 people, but they are the most loyal 1,200 people that They comment, they take action, they do whatever on the posts. That could be more beneficial than partnering with someone who has 200,000 followers. It just becomes a number. I think they're all created differently, and you can value from the giveaways. That's one thing that we preach all the time is if you want to grow a social media account the right way, partnering strategically with local influencers and doing giveaways is the fastest way to grow a following, with exception to having videos that, take off and, go viral per se, but don't bank on virality. I don't think doing so is a smart decision, because more than likely all of them are going to flop. Like at that point, you're trying to figure out the algorithm, and it's a losing battle all day long.
Yeah, anyone who I am doing social media strategy with, I'm like, listen, the goal is not to go viral. That may be a result of what we're creating here. Your goal is to create quality content that engages your audience and encourages your target audience to take action with your brand.
Right.
So we get questions all the time about sourcing influencers and how do we find influencers to work with. And it is something I teach, but it's not an easy process to find and vet influencers and to find who you're looking for and know that it's going to be the right partnership. And I see so many who are like purged by influencers, and they're like, I hate influencer marketing. And I'm like, it's because the partnership wasn't structured correctly and your deliverables were not clear and there was no accountability for anyone involved. So yeah, of course it flopped for you and it was really frustrating. And the other side of that too is it's like, well, they just want a free stay. They just want a free stay. And I'm like, okay, let's think about it this way though. Let's say that your ADR, your nightly rate is $200 a night. Okay. And they're going to stay for 2 nights. This is $400. And with that, they are going to do a giveaway for you on social media and tag your brand. You're going to gain 1,000 followers from that, let's just say, because that is totally what's possible. You also are going to get content that you can now reuse, as long as this is included in your agreement, that you can now use for years to come. So for that $400, they have now brought you 1,000 new potential guests who should fit your demographic if you did your vetting correctly for that influencer. And they've created content for you that you would probably spend $1,500 or more on actually obtaining. So there's a difference between user-generated content creators and influencers. And those content creators usually, to your point, they are very good at creating content. They're very good at telling the story. And that's something that's really important to keep in mind when you're looking for a creator and or an influencer, is that they can tell stories very effectively. And if you're working with an influencer, they are probably more focused on the fact that they have built an engaged, loyal audience. And this is why I would spend my dollars on influencer marketing before I would ever spend my money on, truthfully, because they've already built the trust with their audience. And so whenever they share something or they share an experience or they share a product or whatever it may be, that audience has inherent trust already with that brand because that influencer has built the relationship with their audience. Hopefully everyone's following along with that. But that's why I think that form of marketing, not even I think, I know, I've seen it proven with data, that form of marketing is incredibly effective, especially in this industry.
Yep, absolutely. And if you can capture the emotion of the experience, and the person doing that content can be like, oh my gosh, like I could see myself in the hot tub. I could see myself sitting around the fire with my family. I could imagine, like, that increases the chances that that person's going to go from just a user on the platform coming across a video on Instagram to someone who is now like, okay, I want to learn more about what these cabins have to offer. Then they go to your profile. And I think this is a key piece as well, is like, if you grab their attention, they take action with whatever your CTA is, and then they go to your profile. And if they go to your profile and you have a lackluster image, your profile is incomplete, you don't have a link in your bio, that's where the ball can get dropped, to where it's a full process of quality content, having them take action, getting them over to your profile, almost thinking as your Instagram profile as yet another OTA. Get them there so they go, okay, well, what is this place? Like, what's it about? What do the reviews look like? What should I expect to experience? What are frequently asked questions? All these things, if you can tap into that, then you start to build that trust, and then you get them to click on the link in your bio, and then you get to go to the direct booking website. If you can make sure all of those pieces connect together and are done well, I think that's where you stand a good chance, versus you can't just do one and then do a lackluster job on your profile or a lackluster job on your direct booking site. Because if they get there and they start to get hesitant and then they just, came across you for the first time, you might miss an opportunity on getting that guest to book.
Yes, you have to make sure that your brand, again, mirrors what you're working to create. I see short-term rental owners who have tried running ads. You're like, man, my ads are not converting. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, let me take a look at your website and your social media accounts. And I'm like, social media, bad Canva graphic, no video. You look like spam. Your website has a horrible user experience. Obviously, your ads are not working. You can throw money at Facebook all day long. Your ads aren't going to convert no matter how much money you throw at it if people don't inherently trust you. And that's all there is to it.
Yeah, it's trust and emotion. If you can spark both of those, you stand a much better chance of turning those potential guests into actual guests, which is critical. It's the name of the game, and that's where I think you can start to see a big bump in your revenue. Is if you can master the ability to capture attention and convert that attention into direct bookings. That's where I think you've opened up the door of possibilities with what you can do with your property versus just looking at Airbnb and be like, okay, my place can make 50,000. Great, it make 50,000, but it could make upwards of 70 or 75,000 or 80,000 by tapping into this world of social media marketing and direct bookings.
For sure, 100%.
So last, I should take last question because I got two after this. But what is next with everything that you got going on? Maybe next is just finishing up the 11 cabins in the venue. That seems like a big enough project. But Steph, what's next for you? What do you see yourself doing here in the next few years?
I would definitely say that next for us is being able to focus on the cabins. I mean, we're growing our co-hosting business, but my goal with that is we can grow it to a point where we have great owners, we have great properties, and we have a team that it is executing. And if we have clients that approach us and want us to take them on and we feel good about that, then we will. But my intention with that business was never to say, oh, we're going to run this huge property management company where we have hundreds of properties. That's not my goal. I want 40 to 50 really amazing properties with great owners who just let us do our job that I can build a team around and they can take it and run with it. And that's phenomenal. So that's that piece of thing. And I start with that one because I'm like, that vision for me is the easiest and the clearest because I'm like, I know what to do there. The cabins, of course, it's going to be a learning curve. Yeah, I've had a few conversations with people who are like, how do you guys know how to run a wedding venue and an event venue? And I'm like, I have no idea, but I will figure it out. And that is what is required of entrepreneurship. It's like anything I've ever been tasked with in my life, I will figure it out and I will learn along the way and I will make mistakes along the way. But I like to figure things out on my own. Jordan, my mom always tells the story about how they tried to teach me how to ride a bike and they would let go. And I was like, oh my gosh, don't let go. And I finally one day was like, I'm freaking learning how to ride my bike. So I went out in the garage, took it out into our cul-de-sac and just started going for it. And she was like, you have always had to do things your own way and you just have to figure it out on your own. And that's super true. And I think that is, I just have this entrepreneurial spirit ingrained in me. I don't know. But it certainly will be a learning curve, but it will also be an amazing case study, an amazing example of what we're able to do from a branding and marketing perspective. And so the Weber Co., we will continue to grow our agency. We're actually going to launch a full service agency to be able to support and done for you social media management, content creation, email marketing, anything organic marketing to start. I may bring in somebody for paid ads at some point in time, but it's always been my heart to make sure that your organic content is really strong and that your brand is incredibly powerful and connects the way that it needs to your ideal target audience. So we will launch that right now. I'm coaching and I'm doing one-on-one projects in that sphere, but I'm excited to roll out the agency in its entirety, and the cabins will be a good example of that. So we'll see. I would absolutely entertain more micro resorts, potentially more boutique hotels. I think that offers a different beast. And I have a very specific, like what I'm looking for and what I'm willing to invest in there. I don't know that I really want to buy something or be involved in something that requires to have front desk staff or like on-site staff. The cabins really don't right now. And we have great vendors down there that support recruiting and so on and so forth. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. And the Weber Co. will continue to grow in the way that it needs to as well. And we'll continue to support short-term rental owners and boutique hotel owners, micro resort owners, etc. So lots of growth to come in the next few years. And I know that we're on the right track. And I wouldn't be here if I didn't feel so strongly in my gut. Like this is where I'm meant to be. And this is the industry where I thrive and get so much energy out of, and I know I can help others thrive as well.
I love that. And it sounds like you only have a few things going on. So it's great. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's one of those where you can have the plan, but a lot of times you just let it go where it may go depending on the circumstances. So I love that. And I think the 11 cabins in the venue I think it's going to do absolutely tremendous for you. It was something that we actually looked into doing ourselves a few years back. And it's still something in our back pocket that we're looking to do here in a few years. So I think maybe it's something that we could collaborate on and bounce ideas off each other.
Amazing.
So
I love it. Totally down.
Yeah. So perfect. Well, like I said, I had 3 questions for you. So we're down to the last 2. And these are the 2 questions we ask every single guest that comes on our podcast. So I hope you're a reader. I am. I used to never read books. Like now I have a whole stack over here, which is great. So the first question, what book do you recommend to the listeners that has had a significant impact on your journey and professional career?
You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. I absolutely love this book. It's one that I've read a couple of times. And if you're more of an audiobook person, I know that I am now, that we drive down to the cabins multiple times. Like I drive down there every month and I have 8 hours. So I'm like, okay, what audiobook am I going to turn on? But she narrates, and it is just, she's just sarcastic and witty and real. But helps you really step into this place of power. And I think that that's an important place to be as an entrepreneur, of how you view yourself and realizing what you're capable of and what you're building. And there are often times that I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we did all of this. And people will be like, Steph, you're insane, or like, you're whatever. And I'm like, man, this is normal for me. And I get to this place sometimes where I'm like, I'm not doing enough. This isn't enough. I got to go harder. I got to go more. And that book is a good reminder of like, take a look at everything that you've accomplished and what you're capable of, and you are a badass. She has a few other renditions than that. You Are a Badass at Making Money, which is good. Although I started listening to it again recently, and I'm like, I don't think this is relevant for my place of life where I am anymore. So I think it may or may not be relevant. But she also has a book about habits, which is good too. So anyway, that's one that I've enjoyed, and she's a great author.
Yeah. I'm trying to, I know I've either read it or listened to it. I think I listened to it as well. And it's a tremendous book. It was one that I think I listened to the first one. I'm like, well, I gotta listen to the other ones. I think I did the money one as well, but that was about as far as I got. So
Yeah.
You Are a Badass. Great book and great audio for sure.
The other one I would say, because I have to, is Unreasonable Hospitality. It is the best book I've ever read. Actually, it's parallel with You Are a Badass, but like very, they're different purposes, right? Like that one's more mindset. This one is more like your business and hospitality. And I'm just like, again, I listened to this one on audiobook as well, and so captivating. I was captivated the whole time. It's phenomenal book. It should be a requirement for short-term rentals, actually.
Yeah. You know what's funny? Hold that thought real quick. I haven't read it yet. I literally just bought it yesterday or 2 days ago.
It's so good.
It's one of those that's been recommended, and I saw it was Amazon Prime Day deal, and I'm like, I gotta buy it. So I'm glad that you love it, and I'm so excited to tap into it. What I've heard is it's just transformational from a hospitality mindset perspective.
It is 100%.
I love that. So, all right, last question. What is one thing that you know now that you really wish you knew when you were 20 years old?
I wish I would have understood real estate investing at the time. And just investing in general. When I was 20, I was like, one, I was trying to make ends meet, but two, I worked in the fashion industry. So I was like, oh my gosh, Victoria's Secret is giving me a store credit card. Yes. Or American Eagle store credit card. Sign me up. I was like, sign me up for all the store credit cards. And I ended up with like $6,000 in consumer debt, which wasn't crazy. But I look back on that time and I'm like, man, I wish I would have had better spending habits, better financial habits, and really understood what I was doing at the time. Because there was a while where I had a full-time job and was also doing my influencer marketing side of things. But it was like everything I was making as an influencer, I was spending. And I wish I would have taken that income and invested in real estate earlier. It's not that I would say. It's just, and now we're trying to instill that in our kids as well, so that they understand. Like, I think for me, there has to be a healthy balance of, you make money, you get to spend, you get to save, and you get to invest. And that's what we're trying to teach our boys, because my husband is very parallel opposite. And he's like, I just cling on to everything and cling on to every dollar, and I will not spend and will not spend. And I'm like, but then you don't get things that you want. And I think that there has to be this level of, we all work our butts off. Like, we work so hard. We have to be able to reward ourselves and actually enjoy what we're working so hard for. And so we're trying to teach our boys, hey, like, we spend, we save, and we invest. And this is how we roll.
I absolutely love that. And I love the wishing you would have known about real estate investing or learned about it when you were 20, because that's exactly, I say that every single day to people. It was one, I never realized this world existed until 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Like it happened because of a conversation. My wife's a designer for a custom home builder. So I'm around real estate enough. I know the power and benefit of it, but it was one of those, it's like, it's something you need money. And I didn't have a ton of money sitting around to get into it. And it took one conversation, flipped my mindset. I read one book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I know is cliche to say, but I read that book And it made me think differently. I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I need to do something. And it took me down this path of real estate investing that I can't, I want to scream from the mountaintops to people. It's like, just learn about it. I have a family member who's in college. He's a freshman now. He goes, I'm interested in doing something in real estate. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I wish I was 18 and I had said that to someone who's in the space, because it would have, I mean, I'm 32. So, I mean, that would have been 14 years of experience. Like I could only imagine where I would be from a real estate investing perspective if I knew that when I was 18. So it's, if you can get in on that early, I think there is so much value in that. And the upside on it is if you lean into it enough, the upside is just tremendous.
It is. Absolutely. Yes. So good, Jordan.
Yes, it's amazing. So, well, perfect. Well, Steph, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today on the show. For everyone listening, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yes, you can come and hang out on Instagram at The Weber Co. You can check out our cabin project at Cabins on the Cumberland. And you can head to theweberco.com to see everything we're doing from a branding, design, and marketing perspective. You can also check out Hosted by the Webers as well. So those are all the places.
Awesome. Well, there you have it. Another episode of the Hideaways Show. She's Steph Weber. I'm Jordan Holmes. As always, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.